What's up, guys? I recently bought this Billet Transbrake valve body off of Summit, and I wanted to make a video kind of showing how it goes in and what you have to do to use it, because the directions from Summit are pretty unclear on a lot of things. So here's what they give you, and they tell you you get a small parts kit, direct drum, springs, bolts, and check ball, and they kind of tell you what to do vaguely. So I just wanted to kind of show you guys, because I kind of had to figure it out on my own, and it wasn't too terrible, but just to make it easier on people in the future. So kind of some of the things I want to show you about is, in case a lot of people just think that you can bolt this on and go without any internal modifications to the transmission, but there's actually quite a bit you have to do. So the first thing they tell you to do is drill a 1/16 bleed hole behind the piston in the high gear drum. So this is your high gear drum, otherwise known as the direct drum. This is what gives you, this is part of what gives you third gear. There's more clutches involved, but that's the direct drum. That does third gear. So you're going to drill a 16th hole. You have to compress this ring. There's a bunch of springs behind this ring. So you have to compress that ring down. You have to take this clip off. Well, first, there's going to be a big clip around here. There's going to be a pressure plate, and then all your clutch packs are going to be underneath that. So you take all that out. Then you're going to have to compress this here, compress those springs. You're going to take that clip out. Then you're going to pull this ring off, and you're going to pull this aluminum piston. That's going to come out, and this has 3 lip seals on it. So you're going to pull it out, and then when you drill your 16th hole, you're going to drill it right at the edge, the very bottom of the drum, right at the edge of that lip where the seal is. So basically right in the corner. You can even drill it on an angle to help you tuck it into the corner. So you drill that hole, and then you take your center lip seal out, and you put that piston back in there. And it's a real pain, and it's a pain. The best thing to do is put your new lip seals, the 2 lip seals you are going to use, you put those in there, and then you're going to kind of work it down until this outer one sits down in there, and then you're going to take a feeler gauge and you're going to stick it down in there, and you're going to real gently spin this and push and spin and push and spin and push. And it's kind of frustrating sometimes, but you'll get that piston to drop in there, but you got to be real careful because you don't want to rip that seal. So then they include new springs which go in underneath this ring. So you're going to take your current springs out. You're going to take the springs out of your bag, you're going to put them in there, compress this, put the clip back on, then this part is done. So then part of what they don't tell you about is they give you another big spring in the kit. It's probably about 3 inches long, probably 3/4 inch in diameter, and that is for the pressure regulator on the pump, which you can see that snap ring right there. That's where that spring goes. So you're going to have to pull the pump, which you're going to have to pull anyways, because you got to pull the pump and you got to pull everything else out to get this direct drum out. So you're already going to have your pump out. So you got to compress that, pull that clip out, take the spring off, put the new one in, compress that, and put your spring back in. So then the pump's pretty much done. That's all you really have to do for that. So then they tell you the solenoid pulls 6 to 8 amps. Use the spade connector for the kickdown. So here, this this guy used to go right here, but this valve body blocks it off. And they give you a new connector for your harness. So you just put the O-ring on there and snap it in, and that's where your activation wire for the Transbrake goes. And then it says you must use a stock 400 modulator valve. See, the modulator valve is right under here in the case of the transmission, under the valve body. So they give you this plug, and that goes in place of, over here, this is the factory vacuum modulator. So you don't use that anymore. So you take this off and you put that plug in its place, and you use the stock modulator valve. Don't grind it, don't modify it, don't do anything to it. You just put it back in. So you put that in there, and then you put your plug in with an O-ring, bolt the little bracket on, and that part's done. So then when you get ready to put your valve body on, you'll see, I already have mine on here, but you drop, this is like your manual selector valve. You put that in there, you gotta line it up. And then you'll see in the kit, they give you a bunch of bolts. The smaller 3 bolts go in these holes. Some of the bolts are longer. The long ones go in here, these 2 holes, and this one right here, which also holds like your detent or whatever you want to call it for the gear selector. So you're going to put all that in, and you don't use gaskets. They don't tell you that in the instructions on Summit. On Jegs, they do tell you that you don't need to use gaskets, which I believe this is identical to the Jegs kit. It's just sold under a different name. So you're going to put your check ball in the back of the valve body, and before you put all this on there, you're also going to you're gonna eliminate your intermediate band. This is your intermediate band. This rides on the outside of your direct drum, and when you decelerate in second gear, this is going to clamp, and that's what gives you your engine braking. So when you switch to a full reverse manual valve body, you will no longer have engine braking with a Transbrake anyway. So you're gonna take that band out, and then before you put the valve body on, you're gonna eliminate this piston and spring. And this piston and spring goes roughly right here behind the valve body, and that's what's going to activate this band. But since you don't have the band anymore, you don't need the piston anymore, so you just get rid of all that. So you eliminate that, you eliminate this. You also eliminate the governor, because this would normally sit in the case about like this somewhere. There's a little cover right there. So you take that out, because you'll see these 2 holes here, that's what lubricates the governor. Well, the billet valve body gets rid of the governor tubes. Normally on a stock valve body, there's 2 tubes that come back here, and they squirt oil into here, and that's what oils your governor. Well, you don't want this spinning in there with no lubrication, because it's not doing anything anyway. So you take that out. So you take that out. These holes are just empty. You don't have to plug them or anything. So you eliminate that. And then, let's see here. It says to use the stock springs and parts to install the rear servo. So this is your rear servo. It's got 2 springs. Check them to make sure that they aren't broken, because when I took my transmission apart, my big spring on the rear servo was actually broken in half. So check your springs, make sure that they're not in 2 pieces, and then you're also going to take the accumulator rings off, which I haven't done yet, but the 2 rings on this piston, you can just cut those off and eliminate them. You don't need them, so you get rid of that. And then the only other thing that you're gonna have to do that I can't really show you is when you're taking this all apart, you're gonna take your cover off. You're gonna take your input and your forward drum and all that out. You're gonna pull everything out, and once you get that out, you're gonna take your intermediate band out. Then you're gonna pull this, or you're probably gonna take the direct drum out first. But when you take this direct drum off, you'll see it's got this recessed area with these holes. That sits on your center support. And on the center support, there's 4 Teflon rings that seal inside. They seal the center support to the direct drum. So what you're gonna do with those is not the top ring, but the one directly below it. You're just gonna take that off and eliminate it. And that's also what helps dual feed the clutches in this. So you're gonna take that out and get rid of that too. So when you put this Transbrake valve body in here, man, it really simplifies the transmission quite a bit, because you get rid of quite a few pieces. You get rid of a lot of things, and it makes it pretty simple. And then all you got to do is make sure, like when I hooked up my wires, they give you a spade and a little eyelet. Put one on there for your ground, one up here to the little spade connector, and it doesn't matter which one's which. It's just a solenoid. As long as it's got power and ground, it doesn't care. So you can hook them up either way. Polarity doesn't matter. And then this is what will activate your coil. And I believe on this transmission it says you can use reverse or neutral for reverse. So I'm not 100% sure, but I believe you have to activate the Transbrake to use reverse once you use this valve body. So you're gonna have to hook that up when you start driving your car. So I mean, that's the lowdown on that. I hope it can help somebody, at least point them in the right direction, because the directions that they give you are not real explanatory. And if this is your first time getting into one of these, it could be a little bit overwhelming, because you almost take the entire transmission apart. I mean, at least you're probably like 2/3 disassembling the transmission to install it. So I figured I'd just show you guys a little video and try to give you some tips and tricks on how to install this. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll answer them to the best of my ability.